Hi, Eli. So I'm just going to go over these questions really quickly that you asked about. So the first one was number 5, where you needed to, sorry, let me just scroll back up here to that question and see. So you needed to expand the expressions and simplify. So the first one was root 3 plus root 5. And those were in brackets and they were squared. So I'm just going to start out by squaring it to expand it. Root 3, root 5. Okay, so if it's squared, you're just multiplying through. And then whenever you have brackets with two terms like that, you want to multiply through using FOIL. So start with first terms. So root 3 times by root 3. Remember, if you multiply identical roots or radicals together, then they're just going to eliminate the square root sign. So root 3 times root 3 is 3. And then FOIL, so outside terms, so root 3 times root 5, and so that's going to be plus root 15. And then inside, so root 5 times root 3 again, which is going to be another plus root 15. And then last, so root 5 times root 5, again, is going to undo the root, so we have just plain old 5. Then we need to simplify as our last step, so you want to combine like terms, so that would be terms that don't have a radical attached, for example, which would be 3 plus 5, which gives us 8. And then root 15 plus root 15 is 2 times by root 15. And that's our final answer. Okay, so basically once you've had everything like simplified and combined as much as you can, then you're finished with the question. The next one you had was 4 minus root 2, and it was being multiplied by root 6 plus 3. So again, we have two brackets with two terms, so we need to use FOIL. So first would be 4 times by root 6. Outside, 4 times by plus 3 gives us plus 12. Inside would be negative root 2 times by positive root 6, which gives us negative root 12. And then last would be root 2 times by positive 3, which gives us, negative times by positive, so negative, and then the 3 root 2. Okay, so now we need to look at simplifying this. So let's see, what do we have here? We have 4 root 6 plus 12 minus 12. So 6 only breaks down into 3 times 2, so that's not really going to help us out at all. Like, we can't take anything out from underneath that radical, so that should stay the same. Same thing with the root 2, but the root 12 we can break down into its factors. So that would be 2 times 2 times 3, right? 4 times 3 gives us 12. And so because we have a squared value there under the root, we can basically take that out. So we're going to end up with, carry down our 4 root 6, 12 stays the same, and then this 12 is going to change into, because we have these 2's that can be taken out, it's going to be minus 2, and then the 3 stays under the radical, 2 root 3, and then minus 3 root 2. Okay, so that's our final expression there, simplified as much as we can, because none of the radicals can be simplified anymore, and none of the terms can be added together because they don't have the same radicals, or they're not just plain numbers. Okay, the next one you asked about was 6D. So with 6D we have negative 12 root 30 divided by 8 root 10. And let's see, what were we being asked, just to simplify it. Okay, so basically we want to find, break everything that we can into factors. So negative 12 is going to be 2 times 2 is 4 times 3 is 12. And we're going to pop a negative in front of there. And then for root 30, 30 is 6 times 5, which is 5 times 2 times 3. If we break it down more simple, 5 times 2 times 3 is 6. And then on the bottom we have 8, and 8 is 2 times 2 times 2 in its simplest terms. And then 10 is, of course, 5 times 2. So now we want to look and see, remember when you're dividing, anything that's the same can be taken out. So 2 divided by 2 is 1, 2 divided by 2 is 1, so those cancel out. Root 5 divided by root 5 is 1, root 2 divided by root 2 is 1. And so we're left with, on the top, we keep the negative, and we have a 3 there. And then under the radical, we have a 3. So negative 3 root 3. And then on the bottom, our whole radical got canceled out, so we're just left with a 2. And that's our final answer. Okay, the next question you had was number 8. And with 8, you were given the picture of 2... Oh no, sorry, I'm jumping ahead to number 11. So with number 8, basically they tell you that pitch is height over width is how you calculate that. And then they give you the height and the width, and you basically just need to determine the pitch in the lowest mixed radical form. So the height that they gave you was 12 root 6. And the width that they gave you was 21 root 12. Root 12, there we go. So again, let's expand these as much as we can into their factors. So 12 is going to be 2 times 2 times 3, and root 6 is going to be 2 times 3. And then on the bottom, we're going to have 21, which is 7 times 3, and 12 is going to be 2 times 2 times 3. Okay, so again, looking at what we can cancel out, 3 and 3 are going to cancel out on the outside. 1, 2, like one number 2 from each radical can cancel out, and one number 3 from each radical can cancel out. So that leaves us with 2 times 2 is 4, and then on the bottom we have 7, and we still have a 2 underneath the radical, so 7 root 2. Now remember that if you have a denominator on the bottom, denominator on the bottom, of course, if you have a denominator that has a radical in it, then you want to rationalize that. So we want to basically multiply both sides by this radical in order to get rid of it. So root 2, root 2. And so now we're going to have 4 root 2 over 7 times by root 2 times by root 2 is going to give us hold on a second. I'm trying to figure out because I thought there was a mistake in there. So root 2 times by root 2 will give us 2. All right, so here we go. So 7 root 2 times root 2 is just going to give us 2. So 7 times by 2, which gives us 14. So now we end up with 4 root 2 over 14. And I'm just trying to think here because I thought I ended up with root 2 over 7. Let's see, 14 would be 7 times by 2. Oh, there we go. So 14 is going to be 7 times by 2, and 4 is going to be 2 times 2, root 2. And then this 2 and that 2 cancel out, and so we're left with 2 root 2 divided by 7. Okay, so that's our final answer there. What was the last question here? Number 11 is the one with the boxes. Let me just open that up a second. So you had, which rectangle has the greater area? So remember with area, it's always just length times by width, and they give you the length and width of each of those boxes. So the first one is, let's see, 6 centimeters times by 3 root 6. Okay, and then, so then 6 times by 3 gives us 18 root 6. Okay, and then the other box that they gave you had 5 root 2 as one dimension and 4 root 3 as the other one. 4 root 3. And so we end up with 5 times 4 is 20, 2 times root 3 gives us root 6. So if we have 20 root 6 and 18 root 6, we just have to say which one would be the larger area. And of course it's going to be, because they're both being multiplied by the same radical, you just have to look for the number with the larger coefficient, which would be, box B here with 20 root 6. So B has the larger area. Okay, so that's everything that you asked, and hopefully that helps. Let me know if you have any more questions.